the young, and the restless spoilers. The flashing lights of police cars and ambulances illuminated the street outside Daniel's house, casting eerie shadows against the walls. The entire scene was a whirlwind of activity. As officers rushed in and out of the house, paramedics followed closely behind, guiding stretchers to waiting ambulances. The neighborhood buzzed with speculation and fear. What had happened inside? Why was Daniel in such critical condition? No one could make sense of the chaos, and the whole area was cordoned off, leaving onlookers desperate for answers. Rumors began to spread like wildfire. The news was grim. Daniel had been hospitalized after suffering from what appeared to be a severe poisoning. His life was hanging by a thread, the doctors working around the clock to stabilize him. The media quickly picked up the story, and within hours, it was all over the local news. The report of Daniel's dire state sent shockwaves through the community, but the question that weighed on everyone's mind was, who would do something so heinous? And why? Nick stood at the edge of it all, his mind a tempest of guilt and fear. He knew the truth, or at least he thought he did. Sharon was the one behind this. There was no doubt in his mind anymore. The signs had been there all along, and the moment he found that poison in her bag, he should have acted. But he hadn't. His hesitation, his fear of confronting the woman he still cared about, had allowed this nightmare to unfold. And now, Daniel was fighting for his life. How was he supposed to face that? As Nick stood frozen, inside the hospital, a different kind of pain was unfolding. Lucy sat on the edge of the hospital bed, her arms wrapped tightly around her mother, Heather. Both of them were drowning in grief, tears flowing freely as they grappled with the sight of Daniel, barely clinging to life, hooked up to countless machines that beeped and whirred ominously. Lucy's small body shook with sobs, and Heather could do nothing but hold her tighter, trying in vain to shield her daughter from the horror of the situation. Heather's heart burned with rage. Sharon had done this, she knew it. There was no one else who could be responsible for something so cruel. Her first instinct was to march right up to Sharon and make her pay for what she had done. Heather could feel the fury bubbling up inside her, a need for vengeance that was nearly overwhelming. But as much as she wanted to strike back, she knew it wasn't that simple. There was no proof, no solid evidence linking Sharon to the crime. The police needed something more to make an arrest, and as long as Sharon remained untouchable, she would continue to live freely while Daniel suffered. Meanwhile, the police had locked down Daniel's house, combing through every inch of the property for any clue that could help them piece together what had happened. They were determined to find answers, but so far, their search had turned up nothing. The security cameras, which should have provided crucial footage of the incident, were mysteriously offline. Someone had tampered with them, expertly cutting off any chance of recording the crime. It was as if the perpetrator had thought of everything, leaving no trace behind. As the investigation hit dead ends, Sharon reveled in her success. She and Cameron were seated in a secluded, dimly lit room, their glasses raised in celebration. The atmosphere between them was electric, filled with dark, twisted satisfaction. Sharon couldn't help but smile, feeling a surge of triumph at the news. No evidence, no suspicion pointing directly at her, she had managed to get away with it. Cameron, a dark figure from her past who had always brought out the worst in her, sat beside her, grinning as they toasted to their victory. The scene was grotesque. While Daniel and his family lay in the hospital, fighting for their lives, Sharon was living a life free of consequences, indulging in the sick satisfaction of what she had done. Cameron egged her on, encouraging her cruelty, whispering words of praise for her cold-hearted execution of the plan. Sharon, once a woman known for her warmth and compassion, had become someone unrecognizable, her heart hardened by years of bitterness and trauma. Now, she saw no problem in celebrating the suffering of those she once considered friends. For Nick, the weight of his silence was becoming unbearable. He knew he couldn't hide from the truth much longer. Every passing moment felt like a betrayal to Daniel and his family. But how could he expose Sharon, knowing the consequences that would follow? The thought of her being arrested, tried, and locked away in prison was something he couldn't stomach, despite the fact that she deserved it. His emotions were tangled in knots, torn between his love for Sharon and his moral obligation to see justice served.